everyone. Welcome to the Leaderboard, where we talk about what's going on in the world of esports. I'm Meg Turney, and joining me, as always, is the Daily Dot's Jared Wynne. Hi, Jared.
That's me.
You're a Beyonce expert, too.
Yeah, and not so much a Solange expert.
No. I brought up Solange you didn't know, but Beyonce you nailed.
I know Solange, but I can't really give her lyrics.
Right. But Greenlight you got.
Yeah.
Nailed it. All right, so moving on to the world of esports, Cloud9 made their decision to move on from Hai Lam as the team's mid laner. It's a long-rumored move and the first for multiple-time LCS champions. The question now is who will become the first new member of the team since they entered the LCS, with Nikolai Incarnation Jensen and David Yusui Bloomquist, the likely candidates. Didn't mess up the names, couldn't say the word likely. Let's talk about Hai leaving.
Let's do that. Not a big surprise, as you mentioned.
Right.
We've kind of expected this for a while. It was the writing on the wall. Everyone talked about going into the TSM Cloud9 finals. Bjergsen's going to run over Hai, and then at times he pretty much ran over Hai. Now, they had other issues. Elimination with some pretty significant misplays at the support role, getting outshone significantly by Lustboy of TSM. But this was the main thing hanging around Cloud9 like a dark cloud throughout the split. And now it's come up here. Hai's had some injury issues in the past. It just seemed like an inevitability that unless Cloud9 were going to finish first in the split again, that was really the minimum. He was going to step down. Wasn't exactly a move without friction, as we saw.
Yeah.
There was some, maybe
some controversial aspects to it, I felt.
Some parting shots might have been fired, And it was a strange thing because they gave him the big thank you Hai treatment and the fans were all very happy to see him go. And then maybe wasn't all quite so, happy-go-lucky and feel good and stuff. But that's how these things tend to go. Someone is going to get the blame whenever you're the number one team in the region for a long time, then suddenly you're not. In fact,
I guess I just felt like it struck me as odd that he made a point to talk about not liking his teammates anymore. Basically, he was just like, "Oh, there was a lot of chemistry issues," and
well, there were. I think.
You think maybe his teammates are shitty?
No, I don't think their teammates are shitty. I just think it's they've been together for a long time.
Fair.
For almost about 2 years now in the LCS, so that's a lot of time spent playing together. Now, they are professionals, so eventually you got to learn to play with the people you don't necessarily have a great relationship with anymore or have great chemistry with anymore. But if it does come to that point, if you're having one person, two people have significant performance issues, the team seems to be gelling a lot less than they used to be. And that's a big aspect, a big strength of Cloud9 in the past, is how much chemistry they had together. If those things are now maybe even a deficiency on the team, then maybe it's time to look in another direction. I think Incarnation could fit quite well, actually. Yusui is more, I think, of a backup plan in case Incarnation doesn't work out because he is kind of an unknown, having been banned for quite some time by Riot.
Let's talk about that.
Well, he was banned for the whole toxicity thing and maybe some other things.
So now he's back.
Yeah, now he's back. He's been back. He's performed according to the Riot overlords. So Cloud9 has him available to them for a tryout, and they're going to try him out, and I think he will work out pretty well for them, actually. We'll see. It's a new direction for Cloud9. They had, the solid five for so long. Now they're going to bring in the first big-name roster change, go in the way of the TSM, basically, who are happy to make big-name roster changes if they feel they're necessary. We'll see if it works out for Cloud9.
And it's not the end for Hai. Hai is going to stay on with Cloud9 at a sort of like a management position.
Yeah, he's had a high position with the organization for some time now. He was there from the beginning, so it makes sense that he would stick around now. What exactly that entails, it remains to be seen. He's not necessarily in a coaching role. He's more of a general manager role, as it's been described. Whatever that means in this context, we'll see. It's going to take some time, I think, to really shake out and see what his role with the team is going to be going forward.
I keep hearing that. Nadeshot said the same thing when he left. He was like, stay on, sort of a manager type thing. So I feel like I helped make this team. I'm still going to make some money off of it, but I do not want to play with you anymore.
I'll sweep the floors occasionally, just,
give some advice whenever you need
comb your hair if you're feeling kind of out of it today,
Stick around.
Yeah.
He's like a dorm mother now. All right, let's move on to Valve, who's stepping in to help clean up the competitive Dota 2 scene. The developer announced that they would be assisting in establishing a series of yearly major tournaments, with the International being one of 4. These tournaments will require participating teams to maintain stable rosters. All right, so let's talk about why Valve is stepping in this capacity.
Well, one of the big issues in Dota 2 specifically is the overabundance of tournaments. And all these tournaments tend to have qualifiers. So if you have 30 tournaments a year that you are expected to play in, and the majority of those have qualifiers you're expected to go through, that's a lot of events every single week, a lot of qualifiers every single week. It's too much almost. PPD, the big American captain over at EG, who's had some success with them and internationally now, has said multiple times, our team is so good in the region, we qualify for everything we attempt for. Please just invite us, bypass the qualifiers, let us actually go to these events and focus on that. Because there's so many of them where you go for the money, you play for the money. Also, another factor is the fact that you have kind of a feel of the friends of Dota now, in the sense that teams have roster swaps going on very often, and seemingly just at a drop of a hat. Like, you know what, I want to play with these guys instead, or I want to play with these folks instead. I'll go over here, I'll go over there. You end up with an idea or a feel of pickup teams, basically, just coming together with different friends and acquaintances. You don't really have good, solid teamwork and chemistry. And Dota 2 sometimes has the feel of a game where individuals can make more of a difference and play more, because you have more, the team fights tend to be more snappy. You know, there's not as much of a grind and the progression of a game, if that makes sense. So it's just it's a different game and a different competitive scene, which I think have brought Valve into things to help keep the competitive scene healthy. There's been all this talk about, oh, Dota is dying, it's going to go the way of the dinosaur, because of the issues I just spoke about, because of this instability, the constant instability in rosters, the constant events and qualifiers coming every week. So Valve wants to have 4 big majors a year, including the international, and to participate in them, you have to have roster locks for some period of time.
Have they said yet what that period of time is? What's considered a stable roster?
The specifics are still up in the air, but basically you'd have to maintain a single roster for a set period of time. And it's a good plan, because we see at the international, the highest level of play in Dota 2. I love watching the international. It's a great tournament to watch, because teams, for the purpose of winning a bunch of money, will stick together for a good period of time heading into the international. Because so then we have great team play, we have good solid chemistry established, we feel like these are the teams, they're not just interchanging players, you know, for the most part. So it's a good feel of that event, and they want to establish that same atmosphere, that same feel competitively at every event in the calendar, or at least the big ones.
Well, it's nice because you see after the international, and we saw it this past year, that teams were like locked in, like you said, ready to play, and then as soon as it was over, everybody, even the winning team, split up. So it's crazy to me that you get to this event and everybody's ready to go, and then the event happens and everything splits off. So if there's 4 events a year, perhaps people will keep together to keep going to these other events.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
I think there's a trend that's been established of, you know, I'm bored playing with these guys, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm tired of listening to this guy, I'm going to go somewhere else. As a professional player, you might have to be expected to play with people you don't get along that well with personally. It's just a matter of, you know, I think it's going to be shocking to some of these guys when they get in that position. It's like, but I don't like this guy anymore. How can I play with him on a professional team? It doesn't make sense to me. Welcome to, you know, being a professional. You don't have to like everyone you work with all the time.
Commitment issues are a thing sometimes.
Yeah, especially in this particular realm. So that's why Valve's stepping in here to make sure this problem is nipped, not in the bud because it's already become an issue, but
Right.
It's nipped wherever it is now, like in the mid-stim, perhaps.
Yeah, somewhere in the stage that has happened.
Just a little stim nip.
All right, one of my favorite stories this week, because it is so damn ridiculous, is Blizzard's Hero of the Storm making waves when it debuted this weekend on ESPN2. The featured Heroes of the Dorm tournament, love that, was contested between teams from different universities, hence the dorm part, with a team from Cal Berkeley beating Arizona State. All right, so let's talk about this, because we're going to get to the Backlash, but first let's talk about the tournament.
Yeah, it was pretty well run. Yeah. And good games, too. The final was great. The final was very close. It was exciting. The broadcasters did a good job. Tasteless Artosis especially did a good job of keeping fans involved. It's a difficult challenge with a game like this, broadcasting it to people who don't know what the fuck's going on, because the objective flow is very important to the game. It's not just getting in big team fights all the time. It's about taking some mercenaries over here and going to the specific map objectives over here. You can talk about those things and explain them in a broadcast, but to someone who's never seen the game before, they're going to forget what you said or not understand it, and to begin with, like within a second of you saying it. So it's important just to emphasize that something important is happening whenever it happens, and they did a good job doing that. You know, there was going ham with the dragon. Oh my god, the dragon! Tasteless just like losing his mind about the dragons.
That's the best part of esports shoutcasting.
And he did it. You know, it was effective. People were very receptive to that. People within the sports world were very receptive to Tasteless's call. So all due respect to him, and really doing a good job of bringing a difficult, I think, tell story in the game to a mass audience effectively.
So let's get to the backlash, because there was some very specific backlash I'd like to start with from ESPN radio host Colin Cowherd. His name is actually Colin Cowherd. I freaking love that. All right. In a rant that referenced Donkey Kong gamers living in their parents' basements and, bizarrely, Harry Potter, of all things, Cowherd promised to quit his job if he was ever forced to cover video games, and then went on to compare the experience of watching Heroes of the Storm on ESPN2 to putting a gun in his mouth. What an asshole.
It does kind of sound like that, doesn't it?
Mr. Cowherd.
I'll preface by saying that if you're going to get pissed about what Colin Cowherd says about video games, you have a long road ahead of you because he says stupid shit about everything, basically.
Oh, fair enough.
He
Okay.
has a long and storied track record of being an ignorant asshole who deserves disdain and, probably having some shit flung at him. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to do that.
No,
I'm
we
just
would
saying
never do that on the league.
he's probably deserving of that, So it's not a surprise to see him say something stupid.
And he wasn't the only one. There were tons of tweets on Twitter that were like, "Oh, what the hell is this?"
Yeah,
Ugh."
yeah, but I mean, there's tweets on Twitter about everything,
That's true.
unfortunately, for better or for worse. So this guy went on a big program and did this. Yeah, the Harry Potter stuff, I think, really emphasizes just how ignorant he is. He's just like, nerds, Harry Potter, wizards,
Bitches.
video games, magic, brooms you ride, Quidditch.
He ran out of shit he was like, Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
Harry Potter,
He's like,
fuck.
I could put up with Donkey Kong, but I can't put up with this. Like, what the fuck do you mean you could put up with Donkey Kong? What does it even mean?
Guys, quick. Donkey Kong tournament on
Yeah.
ESPN2.
You were able to withstand the arrival of an 80s arcade game, but you can't take Heroes of the Storm on ESPN2. That's where you draw the line, and there's nothing between those 2 points.
Nothing.
You just go straight from 80s Donkey Kong arcade game
Oh,
to
yeah.
Heroes of the Storm on ESPN2.
It's all ruined. And sports can never be on there again. Once nerds taint it, sports can never come back to
Let's
ESPN2.
talk about sports on ESPN2. Hot dog eating,
Yep.
poker, lifting heavy things because they're heavy.
All right, that's a little bit more sporty, I think.
Yeah, but, not quite that sporty. I think it's semi-sporty.
Semi-sporty.
Semi-sporty,
Yeah.
with a hyphen.
Yeah.
But hot dog eating, really.
Hot dog eating, yes.
How many
And also,
things-
nobody bitches about hot dog eating. They're always like, yeah, hot dog eating.
Yeah, it's great. It's a carnival. Let's go. Let's, cram them in there. 61, 62. Awesome. 61 hot dogs in your stomach at the same time. That's exciting.
But nerds can't play a game
But we can't watch Heroes of the fucking Storm.
on Heroes of the Dorm.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah.
Puns also really upset Mr. Cowherd. He really doesn't like them.
It's kind of a silly pun, honestly. I'm
I liked
I'm not a
it.
big fan of the Heroes of the Dorm name. So yeah, this guy, ignorant, dumb. It does speak to the fact that I think in esports you have a lot of need for validation. And people are kind of like, well, why does it matter if this guy talks shit about it? I think it's understandable because people want their passions to be validated. They want people to share their passions and say nice things about them. If someone says to you, hey, that thing you care about a lot, it sucks and you're stupid. That's unfortunate. You don't want to hear someone say that. So it makes sense if someone talks shit about something you're passionate about, you're going to be upset about it.
Obviously. I agree, absolutely. Do you think ESPN should take action against him? Because comparing something that your company is doing to putting a gun in your mouth and then threatening to quit if you're ever forced to do your fucking job, like, really?
Who's going to force him, by the way, to cover video games? Like,
You know what? We need someone to cover video games. Forget the guy who knows what the fuck he's talking about. I need Colin Cowherd
who would
now.
be least qualified and would least desire this position in our entire company? That guy. That's who we want to do
Let's get
this
that
job.
motherfucker.
Yeah, and they've already shown they're going to use guys like Tasteless and Artosis, people from the community, in fact. So that's just
Killing
the
it.
dumbest thing for him to say that. Yeah, and then just make the gun in his mouth comparison, like, hey, suicide joke. That'll get us
That'll
over.
get people.
I tried Harry Potter and Donkey Kong. I know what's going to work next. A suicide joke. So here we go. I mean, they're not going to fine him, I don't think, or suspend him or anything because he's a radio host. This is kind of what he does.
And we're
So-
talking about him.
We're talking about, yeah, I mean, once you get in the leaderboard, you got to get the
Never
PR, the big
mention
PR.
that. You always make fun of whenever I'm like, oh, we're talking about it.
Yeah. Always. Like
I
you do every
like
week or
our
something.
joke.
The weekly reference to that.
like our
that you make.
show.
Yeah, it's a
enough.
fine show. It's better than Colin Cowherd's fucking stupid show.
You
Asshole.
bitch. All right, finally, Justin Wong reminded us of how he became a fighting game legend over the weekend by taking first place in both Street Fighter 4 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 at the Northwest Majors tournament. Oh my gosh. Do you get the biggest of high fives when you take first place in both tournaments?
This is pretty cool. Unfortunately, it's kind of I think, eulogy to this type of thing because we're having more money put into fighting games now. A lot of money in Street Fighter 4. There's not as much time for someone like Justin Wong to be an expert in every single game he plays. Now, we've seen him play a lot of Mortal Kombat X, but what happened to Mortal Kombat X? It got some money from ESL. So I think in the future you're going to have less of this because players are going to become more specialized and they're going to be going for that $500,000 prize pool in one particular game. It's kind of a relic of a bygone era when you have the guy who plays every game because he has the time for it and he feels like it and it's just fun to do. Now it's all about that money. You got to make that money. I think Justin Wong and players like him still going to be successful in a bunch of different games because fighting games have fundamental similarities. You know, it's about spacing, it's about control, it's about muscle memory. So if you're really good at one, then you're really good at two, then you could then be really good at pretty much all of them. And Justin certainly is, but I do think it's a sad goodbye to this era of spreading your goodness across multiple games like this.
You think we're not going to see it anymore?
We
The
will.
money's ruining it.
We'll see some. No, it's not ruining it. I think money is going to improve actually the play in each of these games, but we're going to see greater emphasis on the games that get funding and the games that are really promoted more heavily. Like Street Fighter V, when that comes out, is going to be huge. It's going to be everywhere. Like I think the Capcom Cup, as it currently exists, and with the money that has in it, will look small. Will look like small potatoes when Street Fighter V comes out, and Capcom and Sony put their weight behind that in force. This is like a prelude, I think, to that. So, yeah, this is kind of the tournaments with like the 10 different games. I love that stuff. It's fun to watch all that. But I do think we're going to see more of an esportsification, the big events especially. So, all respect to Justin Wong and his good accomplishments there. And my hat off, my fedora off, my baseball cap off, my toupee off.
Yes.
And so on and so forth to the fighting game World Warriors who cover multiple games like this. May they continue playing multiple games in the pearly gates of fighting game heaven or something.
No, it got weird.
They're not dying. I don't know. It's like an old era, you know. The era's dying.
You think it's gone?
It's going, you know.
Fair enough.
But it's still good. We have good matches in the future, good games.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Chin up, guys.
You can do it.
And
Jared
girls.
believes in you.
Chin up, guys and girls.
All right, guys, that's it for this week of the Leaderboard. Let us know what you thought in the comments down below about all the things. How do you feel about multiple fighting games? We want to know.
And Harry Potter.
And Harry Potter and Colin Cowherd. And we'll see you next week.
Especially that, yeah.